Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm going to tie an emerger pattern for you today. So this is a March brown emerger. So I'm hoping to get over the border for the start of the trout season. Starts a couple of weeks earlier in Wales than it does in England. So I'm hoping to get over there, get a couple of sessions on the husk, and hopefully I'm going to catch on some fish munching some March browns. So let's jump straight into it and show you how to tie this pattern up. Right, so in the vise I've got our Fullingmill 1270 living larva. This is in a size 14. This is a perfect hook for March brown emergers, really strong as well, and that profile just lends itself to an emergent pattern. So I'm going to tie that in behind the eye and take away our butt section. I'm going to counter spin the thread to keep it flat as I come down, and I'm going to come all the way down to just around the bend. As I say, all the while counter spinning, just so I've got a nice smooth body. Right, just check that, happy with where that is. So then next material is some ultra dry yarn. So this is the white, and I've taken a strand off and I've quartered it thereabouts. I've probably got 10 or so fibres. I'm going to lift that on top of the shank, a wrap to lock it in, and then I'm going to come up and in open turns I'm going to lock this in on the top of the shank. Now the reason I've not just cut it off is it'll create a bump, and I want to keep a nice smooth body, or as smooth as I can. So I'm going to tie that up to just before the eye and trim away the butts. So the next material is some more thread. This is the Pro Twisted in pale yellow, and I've doubled it over, and this is going to act as our rib. So I'm going to pull that onto my side, I'm going to pull it down, and then I'm going to wrap down again with nice touching turns, but with the thread counter spun to flatten it. And then we're going to create a body. So I'm going to create a slight taper in this. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's worth doing. Makes for a much nicer looking fly, personally. Now I'm going to come back down and just start forming this taper. So as I say, it does take a little bit of time, but well worth doing in my opinion. Alright, so we're nearly there now, so I'm just going to come back up to there. I'm going to take some wax, and then I'm going to get a pair of hackle pliers. I'm going to grab that pale yellow thread and I'm going to spin it up. And then I'm going to counter rib it in nice open even turns back up the shank. One more, and then I'm going to lock this off. Cut the butts away. Right, so now what I'm going to do, this bump that I've got at the front, I'm just going to apply a bit of thread and I'm going to level that off. because the way we're going to apply our wing is going to sit on top of the shank. Right, so happy with that. So now what I've done is I've got, it all depends how good your CDC is. You're going to want 3 or 4 feathers. So I've got 3 here. So I'm going to measure that against the shank. You want about a shank's length. I'm going to put a little bit more wax to make sure it locks in nicely. And with a pinch turn, I'm going to lock that in. Now, I've took that too close to the eye. So I'm going to come back a little bit because you want quite a bit of room in front of this eye for when we tie in the hackle. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to pinch turn onto there. Right, so you can see I've got a lot more room there now. So I'm going to wrap down a bit. Just going to lift that up and double check. Yep. So you don't want to come back too far, but also you want to be able to get a nice bed down of the hackle. So I'm going to apply more wax. And I've got a speckled badger hackle. Or golden badger, sorry, apologies. I'm going to tie this on, and the way I tie these on, I catch it and then I figure of 8 it. So I'm going to come around the back of the feather, like so, and then over. And that'll mean that my feather will stand sort of perpendicular from the shank. So I'm just going to cut this butt a little shorter so it doesn't crowd my eye. And then I'm going to stop at our tying point. Now you want to leave yourself a little bit of room, because as you bring that feather forward, what can happen is you can take that CDC too close to the eye and then it's a nightmare to tie off. So now, just before I'm going to wrap this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick my butts up of my CDC, making sure I don't catch in my feather, and I'm going to cut these. The reason I didn't cut that first is the way I tie that feather in. If you'd have cut these, it'll catch on the CDC. So I'm going to cut that, and that, the way we've done that CDC, it's really going to help with the buoyancy of the fly as well. So hackle plier onto my feather, and then in touching turns we're going to wrap this feather right up. Avoid hitting the camera here with my hand. Quite a long feather. So as I said before, you want to come down quite a bit because you want to be able to get a decent bed of this feather down. So again, that'll just help with the profile and help with the buoyancy. So I'm going to do one more turn, and this is where I said, you know, if you keep turning, you will just crowd that eye. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to do a turn to lock the feather off. I'm going to do one more turn behind, a turn in front, and then I'm going to lift everything up and come and do 2 or 3 turns in front of that wing. So now I'm going to cut this feather out. So, like so. And I'm going to get some more fly tying wax. And I'm going to whip finish. So we're nearly there now. So 3 turn whip finish, and then for extra security I'm going to do another one like so, and then I'm going to cut the butt section away. I'm just going to prune this wing forward. Right, so now I'm going to cut my shuck to length. So you want a bit of length but not too long. Yeah, happy with that. So I'm going to sweep these hackle fibres forward, and then I'm going to turn my vise upside down. Apologies, it'll probably go out of view. And I'm just going to cut the bottom off this hackle now. So like so. And that is pretty much the finished fly. Happy with that. I've got all those hackles off the bottom. Occasionally get a straggler, you can just nip that out. So yeah, so that's the finished fly. So definitely if you're getting out on those March browns in the next few weeks, it's a pattern that you really need in your box. So just going to take that a little bit shorter actually. Like so. So yeah, thanks for tuning in everyone, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.